You gotta accept the box.
Yeah, I got it.
Hey, everybody. It's the December Omaha Linux Users Group. We're testing our slides right now.
I think we'll be good.
Awesome. Us. So it'll be a surprise. You want to say something?
Yeah.
Hello, this is Dave.
You should be here.
We're recording this for posting later. It's December.
Yep.
2022. And we can set the scene, right?
Right.
It's only slightly cold. There's no gently falling snow.
Nope.
No howling wind.
No, not tonight.
Not tonight.
It'll be this weekend.
I had some snow on the way to work this morning, but that didn't even accumulate.
No.
However, what else is going on this month? Any kernel stuff or
6-1 would have rust in it finally, proving one of my 10 predictions about the next big thing when it's coming through.
what's
Last
got
we've got
hacked
a lot
again.
of kernel updates that are coming down about 16 CVEs.
Ooh, wow. That's a lot. Fedora 37 came out.
New version of Kali came out today, 22.4, so
Mhm.
2022.4.
That's why I had 300 updates. My Cali today, I was wondering.
Now you know.
I better turn mine on.
15 different ones on the same device. Like you have Cali.
No.
Some do.
Another cybersecurity guys, they run Cali and Fedora or Red Hat.
Well, they might do like a whole bunch of VMs under a host with the different distros.
In the old days, we dual booted a lot more.
Dual booting.
This.
It can be done. It can be tricky. The way I used to do dual booting with separate hard drives. I didn't want to put them on the same partitions. So that made Grub have to do a little bit of extra work sometimes, but
Like 2 physical hard drives. or
2 physical hard drives.
But now, or you can do it to traditional. But nowadays, I mean, I don't know if you tried Ventoy yet. Ventoy is one of the coolest things I've seen in the last 15 years. It lets you put a whole bunch of different distributions on one USB hard drive, and it's phenomenal because it handles all of it for you. Just drop it in a folder, the live ISOs, and just go to town. I've got like a 128 gig, which is just loaded with a various Ubuntu versions, Arch, and all that kind of stuff. You just whenever I boot up a system, it's like, which one do you want? Well, I'll just go to live with Ubuntu and stuff. This is just tremendous time saver.
How do you spell it?
Ventoy.
VEN toys.
VEN toys.
Yeah, it is phenomenal.
Just toy. Ventoy.
Oh, Ventoy.
Oh, Ventoy.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, Ventoys is probably going to take you someplace you don't want to go.
No, yeah, do not go to that. We don't know what it is.
We don't have remotes. It'll format the drive standard extended FAT,
Mhm.
but you can do like extended board. But yeah, you just drop the ISO on there and then you can boot right off the.
That's cool.
And then you pick the distro you want to install, or if it's a live distro or whatever, and have it install the box from there.
Proxmox dropped a new version.
And both the backup server and their
Is it collection backup server?
I will be.
That sounded very interesting when I played it out.
Every time you go to the menu, I see black bars on the screen.
My Ventoy.
What?
Oh, whenever you doing that, that's not shared, so it's just blocking everything.
You have your laptop.
Well, we are pushing the limits of what this thing can do. This box.
Display. Window remembers window display.
And see it. It works. What's it look like there? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go to the basics. This is like the old days when I used to have it on the behind me and I couldn't see and I had to look behind me for all of it. Just see how much of it I remember off the top of my head. Oh, that's awesome. So Raspberry Pis, everybody loves them. Nobody wants to pay the money for them. So these are 6 alternatives, and we'll talk about a 7th a little bit at the end. So if anybody's got questions, by all means, let us know. We're a very informal group. If I start to mumble a lot, Because if you, when I mumbled a little, it would be just all night. These are just some of the options to consider. There's a lot of other ones out there. They're not that expensive. And worst case scenario, you've got a very cool piece of plastic to stick on a desk somewhere. One thing I'm not going to talk about is software like Userland and stuff, which lets you take and load an Linux OS on top of an Android phone or something like that, or Android tablet, and it looks like regular Debian. It's actually kind of cool, but it's not the talk of this. We're talking about actually trying to get hardware that you can actually do Raspberry Pi kind of things with. So, and keep in mind, I might be wrong in the various boards and pieces and parts. The specs are changing all the time. So you can get a Raspberry Pi. How much do you have to pay for a Raspberry Pi now? A lot more than you want to.
Sky's the limit.
I was actually looking at Raspberry Pi 4s the other day. It was $150 what they wanted for the 4 gigers.
Wow.
I'm like, that's $45. No, it's $145 you want now.
I have been, so I have heard through some of the groups that I subscribe to that there are some good guys in the United States. One of them is Ada Group. Another one might be Pyroroni, if I remember correctly.
Not element 14.
I don't know. But they are selling, they will still sell you at list.
When they have them in stock.
They have.
But keep in mind, Upton or whatever it was said they'll probably be in short supply into the middle of next year.
Right.
Raspberry Pi, so it's going to be tough to get. If you know what a Raspberry Pi is, it's a computer, it's a chip from your phone inside a small credit card sized computer. It can do all sorts of, it has these GPIO pins, you can hook it up and turn lights on and off, do all sorts of amazing stuff. There's just really cool thing. One of the great things about Raspberry Pi is you can use it as a just pretty much as a small arcade machine or just about anything. So one resource that I do mention at the bottom here is RPI Locator, which will tell you who's got them in stock. If you hit that page religiously, you can find them, but you're going to be, could be a lot of time. And also, if you're willing to be more flexible on which configurations you want to accept, because like some of the ones, if you want the 8 gig of RAM RPI 4, you're going to be waiting. So
I think Micro Center's been pretty good at their pricing too, but they just don't have any.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about 6 options. The Mango Pi, the RISC-V boards. If you know anything about me, you know I love RISC-V, and I'm going to keep beating that architecture until it actually takes off. USB 4G LTE modem, right here. And Android TV boxes, routers, and Raspberry Pi Picos. I own all of the above except for the other RISC-V boards, because I haven't had enough time to figure out which one I want to get yet, because there's so many of them. But Mango Pi, that's what it looks like. It looks almost exactly like a Raspberry Pi Zero. And you can buy them for $32 at AliExpress right now.
Well, it's USB-C. That's funny.
Yeah. It's 2 USB-Cs, mini HDMI, so you get to either find the adapter or buy a cable for it.
Those are fun.
Yeah. The chip is an all-winner D1 C906 RISC-V processor up to 1 gigahertz with 2D graphic accelerator. What does that mean? It ain't that fast. You think it's a gig, it's comparable to a really slow Celeron. System memory, 1 gig in the one I have at home. Storage, micro SD card socket, which is the way that most of them are. Display, mini HDMI 1.4 up to 1080p 60 or 4K at 30 megahertz. Networking, 2.4 gigahertz, 802.11, USB, you know, the usuals. Expansion does have the GPIO pins, which is really nice if you're playing with hardware. Power supply is 5 volt versus the USB-C. So, or you can actually power it through the GPIO pins. There's a couple you can actually put power into there if you want to, which is kind of cool. I don't know if all the Pis could do that. Some can, some can't, I think.
A lot of them need a hat for that.
Yeah. But you power it normally through USB, through micro or mini.
One of my heroes, Mr. Yearling, has a bunch of pies, and
Yeah.
they're all powered by hat. They're
Yeah, it has. And the dimensions of it, it's 2 inches by 1 inch, roughly. because we're not the metric system, because we're America. Mango pie, the pros. You can buy it. That is number one. Let's just be honest, folks. It is available freely from AliExpress. How long will it take to get it from AliExpress? That is another question. You may be waiting a while. Mine showed up in like a week and a half, which was surprised the crap out of me. The pinouts for the port 100%, so you might need to break out the Dremel. Oh yeah, if you have a case for a Raspberry Pi Zero and you try and put one of these in there, it's not going to fit because the ports are slightly different location size. So what you end up doing is, if you have one of those, I love the fact it's really available. That is number one on is what makes it great. Some of the cons, there is no 3D hardware acceleration. Hello Mesa and 3 to 4 frames per second. That is what you're going to get out of 3D on it. It is rapidly evolving. What you get today may not be what you get tomorrow. Raspberry Pi, the RISC-V architecture, what's going into them is changing so rapidly right now. Nobody knows what's going to be in them in 6 months from now. You are buying the leading edge, but you're on the edge of the future. You don't have Raspberry Pi OS, Raspbian. Options include Armbian, TinoOS. Ubuntu is coming as well, which is a good sign. That's actually a sign of validation. That's one of the things that I tend to say that the chip actually has a shot. But Mango, one to consider. I've got one. I've been using it on and off for various old products. No problem.
Which one? Which OS are you using? Are you using Armbian?
I'm using Armbian, which is great because Armbian, the ARM in Armbian stands for ARM.
Yeah.
But it's I found some guy from Russia who had an alternative OS for it. So, but the Mango Pi is the closest you're going to get to a straight 1-for-1 replacement for Raspberry Pi Zero. It is cool to try because it is new. It is different. It is a totally open RISC architecture, a totally open architecture. If the 5 of us here wanted to go into making chips, we could find a foundry, pay them some money, and actually have them create RISC-V chips for us. The whole chip is open source, every part of it, so it is totally available. The next one is other RISC-V boards. There's Ubuntu is supporting a bunch of different RISC-V boards now. And one of the ones is the Litchi RVD1, which is the one I do not have yet, because I can't figure out which other RISC-V board to buy, because there's so many of them. This is, yeah, it's the compute module style, so.
Yeah, one of each.
One of each, yes.
So what kind of host boards do they have?
All kinds of stuff you can do with them.
Do you think I could do the Litchi like that and actually pull off a NAS? Little NAS.
A little NAS. You start taking the things like,
it has like a PCI.
Depending on
Yeah.
what the board, depending on
That's
what.
Yeah.
PCI Express lane, then you could,
Yeah.
otherwise you're just using the USB to SATA.
yeah, keep in mind also, you're at the edge again. If you're putting stuff on a NAS you really care about, and it like screws up a little ZFS calculation for you, and all of a sudden it doesn't put that block where you think it's putting it. For higher priority stuff, I would definitely put, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not hooking this to a heart-lung machine anytime soon, any of these RISC-V boards.
Don't put the wedding the wedding
Yeah.
photos on there, you know, put your.
Yeah, but no,
Your backup. Yeah.
there's a billion different one of these out there. Yeah, Ubuntu's adding more boards to their list all the time, which is kind of cool because you can actually see what's the new things that are coming out, and it gives you an idea of what old things. And there's a bunch of different vendors that are doing it. There's a site out there called Hacker Dev Boards, which actually lays out which boards have which specs right now. They're trying to keep up to date with it, which I wish them luck. But yeah, the SIP-E Litchi RVD1, which is easy to say. It's just rolls all the time. Is a Raspberry Pi 4 compute module design. So it looks like a stick of RAM. It's designed to be used with an optional dock, which you can buy for another 15 bucks. So the specs on it, pretty close to the other one. 1 gigahertz system memory, 512 meg. There's some that have 1 gig, but it depends which one you get. Storage is back to micro SD. Onboard USB debugging port, power supply is the same size, a little smaller because it's a compute module. Video output networking are provided by the optional dock, so it depends on which one you get. Pros, lots of different kinds of boards. Whatever feature you want is probably gonna be available there. If it's not now, it will be sometime down the road. And they're coming out with new ones all the time. Ubuntu is gonna be supporting them, so you have an idea, at least one of their guys gotten this board to work somewhere in the world, so you're not the only one. And you can buy them pretty cheaply, so it's awfully hard to say no to. Some cons, it's pretty much the same cons as the Mango Pi. 3D is going to suck. Once again, it's rapidly evolving. The specs vary from board to board. You're a pioneer. Let's just put it that way. You're the bleeding edge. You are so far out there, you can get whacked anytime. It may burn down your house for all we know. But the funny thing about it is you won't be paying ARM license fee. If you're a hardcore developer, there's all sorts of capabilities. If you have some concept of what you need, you want to like do digital signage, something like that, you want something different, and or you actually need something in stock, you can't wait for a Raspberry Pi, definitely want to consider. Ubuntu is supporting boards from Star 5, Vision 5, Allwinner, Nesball, S5 Unmatched, and Cipede. We'll be adding more in the future. You might be able to find a board that fits exactly what you're looking for. One that I don't have on here, because I wrote these slides a bit ago, is Pine 64 is releasing their open RISC board as well. And that one's going to be really interesting because Pine 64 is very cool stuff. The first thing that Pine 64 put a RISC-V chip in was their smart soldering iron. And after they did that, they said, hey, let's make some boards with these chips in them. So that was their next step. 4G LTE Wi-Fi modems. One of these bad boys. And if you look at the back of it, there's a little spot for the SIM card. The specs on these vary tremendously. Some of these have SD card slots for expanding memory. Some have GPIO pins. Some have all sorts of wonderful things on them. Yeah, once again, made in China. So keep in mind, if you're going to try and use the 4G LTE, make sure you go when the modem bands work in America, or else you could be seeing the FCC come say hi to you.
Well, and also, even if they do work in America, they might be limited in their bands, like,
yeah,
it's only AT&T, or it's only T-Mobile, so you gotta pay attention to the band numbers. And you can get the band number list out of Wikipedia as to who's where.
Yeah, but keep in mind that also is, you're counting on AliExpress, which may be how the Chinese to English translation works on there. I bought, this is my third one I have. I bought two of these initially, because I got them for $10. I have bricked one of them successfully because I didn't realize it was the wrong Qualcomm chip on it. And the other one is sitting there just mocking me on my shelf because I know I want to flash it and see if I can get it to go, and it won't yet. But yeah.
What, you want to live forever?
To quote Robert Conrad, you dare you knock it off.
So the specs, this is where it gets interesting. 4-core, 1 gigahertz, ARM Qualcomm 9600. It's not bad. It's roughly equivalent to a Raspberry Pi 2 or 3 type speeds. System memory 512 for most of them. Some have 1 gig. Storage is 4 gig built into this bad boy. Some have more. Some have micro SD card slots. Once again, you got to pay some attention to it. Networking, 4G LTE. That's nice. Chinese bands, depending on which one you get. Wi-Fi, which is like Wi-Fi 2.4 gigahertz. USB is for power and programming, which is kind of cool in its own right. Dimensions, as you can see, it's about 3 inches by about 1 inch. No video output, none at all right now on this bad boy. There are people who have figured out there's certain pins on some of these that you can hook up to VGA and actually drive a display. There are people with way too much time on their hands. What's phenomenal is a guy in China figured out how to do this, how to get Linux on this thing. He then wrote it all up and put it in a website. And then another guy who knows Chinese and English translated it all. And you can actually do it. It takes like 7 or 8 commands to do it. You have to use the Android ADB fast loader to actually take control of this, to write to the serial port. You flash it, and then you reboot it, and you really hope it comes up. So that's the way that goes.
Buy a couple.
Oh, buy them by the bunch, Float. I would recommend buying several. And make sure you get the right ones. So the pros, really readily available. Cheap. I bought 2 for $20 with shipping. That's hard to knock. Sure, I broke one of them, the other one's still not working, but feeling good about the fourth one. Actually, I have one more in order. Supports OpenWRT, Debian Linux. theoretically, you put other Linuxes on here too, but they're not really that well supported. You can run with a USB battery pack for quite a while. Like we were talking about earlier, if you wanted to send a package, make sure you had like a tow hold situation. One of these hooked up to a big old battery pack and run for 5-6 days, which is plenty of time for you to do network recon. Let's just leave it at that.
You know, for
Yeah.
remote weather stations, that would be a really good thing.
Yeah.
For remote sensors, weather stations. the
Yeah.
like.
Well, example being, at the third floor of my company, there's a pop machine out there. There's a pop machine, the candy machine. And they both have little antennas at the top and little 4G bands that say, hey, we're out of Coca-Cola or Pepsi or whatever. And they just have all that stuff in there. But you think about what those could do for remote sensors and stuff, and the cost of that, those components is next to nothing.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's that. For a remote weather station, if you had to actually put out data for 4G, that would be actually really good, because you probably get enough power on a solar cell during the day to charge a battery to keep it going 24/7.
20 volt panel.
Yeah, and if you got
Charge the battery.
you've got a low enough modem thing, you actually use it pretty decently. So yeah, there's tons of options for it. Lots of options to consider there. Some have HD cards, some have GPU pins, GPIO pins, all sorts of stuff. Cons, no video output, unless you figure out the pins and stuff, and you're crazy. You can brick these. I did. I bricked it hard. I have no idea how to unbrick it, because there's supposed to be a way to be able to get it back to flash, be able to reflash it. And I have yet to, all the commands I've tried for the ADB debugger don't work. Because I think what's happening is this booting is going boom, 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 and just rebooting all over.
Trying to you gotta get that interrupt.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't have the finger speed necessary. Make sure you get the right model, the 8916, not the 9600. Very important.
Your previous slide said 9600.
Yeah, I should have. Yeah, no, I was off on that. Please make sure you get the 8916.
Okay.
I think 9600 is supposed to be getting support, but that's what I grabbed the chip from.
So it's one newer than the other. maybe?
I think the 9600 is newer, but it doesn't work with the current software. Yeah. Getting, depending on which one you get, you might not be able to flash it. Keep in mind, some you actually have to put in debug mode. You actually have to log into it, because on the back of this little bad boy, there is a Wi-Fi key, a router IP, a login password, all that wonderful stuff. So,
You have to at least go into that at least once.
if it's not in debug mode, a lot of them ship debug mode. On this one, I actually had to go into it, turn debug mode on to be able to flash it. So, who knows how long the bootloaders will be unlocked on these? And if you buy one, the bootloader may be locked, may not be locked. Most of them are unlocked right now, but it's still just a cool way to repurpose it. This is the classic way of Linux, how it used to do things in the old days. You'd find some hardware and you'd make it do what you want it to do, and you take control of it, and you just get it to do what you want it to do just by owning it, showing it who is the boss, and showing it a night it'll never forget. So your mileage can vary a lot on these. It can be a lot of fun. Full Debbie is actually kind of cool. I've got Elixir running on this right now. If you don't know Elixir is, it's a functional programming language with a whole stack on it. It's like a kind of like a Python notebook type stuff. I got this running on this thing, which you think about, if you're talking like you're at a conference or something, you just want to be able to set up a live station for people to be able to access to hit your slides or your information or something. Tremendous potential. It can also be a Wi-Fi hotspot. And theoretically, you could actually pull some information, all sorts of stuff with it. The options for what you can do, they're pretty much unlimited. Android TV boxes. This one is actually really, really nice. So TV box runs Android. Android is Linux. Put regular Linux on it. So there are a bunch of options here. We're gonna play this on easy mode because I do not want to don't want to brick any of these bad boys. So what you want to get is an H96 or a T95. And they have this T95 Max just came out, which has 8 gig of RAM, 64 gig of storage, and is like $70.
Wow.
Yeah. You can also buy some of these with Linux already on it from an Innovato. And that's really kind of nice because your life is a lot easier. The specs vary from machine to machine. This is the one I have is a quad core ARM Cortex A53 processor. System memory is 1, 2, or 4 gig. I've got 4 gig in mine. Storage 16, 32, or 64 for most of them. There's some that have more, some that have less. I've got one with 32. probably have an SD card slot. It's not always guaranteed, but 90% of the time you will. Wi-Fi 4 or 5, and you might have wired Ethernet if you actually get some of them, which is nice to have. Dimensions varies widely, usually about 3 inches by 3 inches. And HDMI video output by default because they're made to be Android TV boxes. So you can buy an Envato for 30 bucks. Plus $10 shipping. You can get them for less on Amazon if you're willing to be flexible which one you get. The one from an Envato comes with pre-installed Debian with XFCE. You can buy the other boxes for 20 to 60. There's no GPIO pins that I've seen because I haven't cracked mine open yet because I kind of like mine the way it is now, actually. So you don't get a GPIO pins, but you do get a case, a heatsink, and a power supply for that money. So keep that in mind. If you bring your own, you can also brick one as well. I haven't managed to brick one yet, which is kind of nice, which means I'm kind of like putting a little bit of the edge. So all I had to do is create a special SD card for it, stick it in there, boot it up, let it go through the whole cycle, and then install the next one. That freaking simple. Yeah, the H96 Max just came out. It's an RK3588 processor, up to 8 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs storage. It's not currently supported, but it will be, which is supposed to have 6 tops of 6 TP, whatever the phrase is, of AI performance. It's got an R, it's got some AI teraflop type stuff, and it's supposed to be quite fast for that. So I'm kind of curious what it's going to do. It's not being used at all for that inside the Android TV box, but you actually use that. Theoretically, you can use that for neural net type stuff. So who knows what the powers are there. The cons, if you get the Envato box, it gives them limited specs. I'm sure they'll come out with better ones over time. Specs vary from manufacturer to manufacturer. Some can have locked bootloaders. So be careful with model numbers. That's my piece of advice, is find somebody else who's already done it. Don't be the pioneer, be the settlers. You can brick these. I did brick one of them, but I unbricked it successfully. Depending on which one you get, you might not be able to flash it. And once again, who knows how long the bootloader is going to be unlocked. And there's no Bluetooth in the ones I have, but you can always add an adapter for it. Or in my case, I just stuck a USB plug in and just hooked my mouse and keyboard up that way. And I'm actually reflashing that to use that as a RetroPie. My plan, yes.
The RAM and the storage, are they modules?
They are usually soldered onto the board.
Solid, okay.
Depending on which one you get, I mean, you're giving up some functionality, but you need a very nice little case. So, but yeah, but if you got a project that needs video stuff, that can be a pretty good deal for that. Envato's done some great work, already offering available. So if you're like looking, I want something and I don't want to have to take a risk, it is the way to go. It's straight up Debian XFCE. Yeah, readily available from Amazon. You could have one in 2 days. So this weekend you could have one of these and just be ready to flash it, as opposed to waiting however long it's going to take you to find a Raspberry Pi. Flasher router. This is one of the classics. All over the place. There's MIPS routers, there's ARM routers, there's Intel routers, there's other one chips. I'm sure there's some RISC-V ones out there too. RAM can vary from next to nothing to gigabytes of RAM. Network options can vary a lot, but the one good thing is you'll probably have lots of Ethernet ports in the back, 4, 5, maybe. And cost range from free to hundreds of dollars. You can get them pretty cheap new. Some of the TP-Link routers you can get for less than 25 bucks. You're able to flash OpenWRT on without it being too big a deal. Bought one at Goodwill's Bytes for $5 a couple of weeks ago, just a cheap router. So I wanted to be able to flash something on there to use for a demonstration. Choice of distributions. You have DDWRT, which is the classic. You have OpenWRT, which is a more general purpose OS because it has a package manager, which is really kind of nice because sometimes with DDWRT, you have to go out and find a package or compile a package and build a cross-compile environment. And that's a lot more work than I was looking for when I just wanted to run TCP dump. So OpenWRT already had that in there, so it worked pretty well. Yeah, Debian and Tina or some other options are available as well. Usually a lot of Ethernet ports like we're talking about, networking options. Cons, no display. Unless there's some ports inside, you can some pins inside that are available, which no one knows about for that particular model. You can brick these real well. Over my time, I've managed to brick more than a few of these. Some you're actually able to override back by a serial flashing port, which is how I redid my which one it was, the my OpenWRT router from Buffalo. I actually was able to recover that way. Usually a lot bigger than a Raspberry Pi with a case, because they're usually decent sized. Need to be careful about what version router you get. A lot of times the versions matter. If you get like version 1 of this router, it won't support Wi-Fi. If you get version 2 of it, it doesn't support this, that. So look at the router databases before you break down and buy one, just to make sure you got the right one. Because that $5 Goodwill router I bought, Wi-Fi doesn't work on it, but it works quite well with wired options. So I was happy with the $5. It's got enough storage to be able to handle my TCP dumps for a project I'm working on. So specs vary a heck of a lot. There's no doubt about it, but you'll learn a lot in the process as well. You may have learned that you wasted $5 like some people would. Routers are a good cheap option consider if you need a special purpose computer. You learn a lot during the process. I've got to say I've flashed most of the routers in my house to DDWRT, some variation of it, but they're ideal for projects that are primarily network oriented, like Wireshark, monitoring, IPSs, stuff like that, because they just tend to work pretty well with that stuff.
You mentioned what a pi hole is.
Yes, a pi hole is just actually just syncs all your ads and stuff to a bad address, so it doesn't actually get you the data. It doesn't actually pull down the ads and stuff. It's a really great project for that, and it's one that works really well in the router version. There's that. There's also Pi VPN, which is also a really nice one. It works with WireGuard and OpenVPN, and will let you take your home router, set up a small machine in your home network, and actually let you get back into it from like work and stuff. I've got Wireshark installed on mine, so I get to my home stuff when I'm at work and stuff. If I need a file or something off there.
So that I will absorb all the ads.
90% of them.
You gotta use it as a proxy. So
Yeah.
Your requests go through the pi hole, and any request that's to like a known ad service, it just doesn't fulfill the request.
Yeah.
So those are off.
It depends on how you set it up. You can set it to be pretty transparent at the router level. But it works really quite well for that. There's a whole bunch of things you use Raspberry Pis for like that. The WireGuard VPN actually is one of my favorites because I use that. Ooh, very nice.
Yes, I think WireGuard's on here too. So the nice thing about the this is the GLI net stuff.
That's the one I actually was able to. But my GLI net, I had the small tiny travel router. That's the one I actually managed to flash by getting the serial port straightened out.
So this one's programmed so I can turn the VPN on the switch on the side.
Oh.
And it'll connect back to my house.
The whole concept of that was initially GLI nets was, hey, you're going to go to a hotel or something and they have all these rules on their internet and stuff. They want to charge you for Wi-Fi. Plug one of these into their wired internet and we'll serve it up and stuff.
Yeah, because some hotels were like, well, each device is $10.
Oh.
So you put that on there and then all your devices go through. It's quite handy.
Yeah. But so that goes through the most obvious 5 options. And we're going to talk about a 6th option here, which is the Raspberry Pi Pico. Pico dual core ARM Cortex M0 Plus, system meg memory, 264 kilobytes of RAM. That's right, 264 kilobytes of RAM. Storage is 2 megabytes, not gigabytes, megabytes. You have GPIO pins on it, which is nice. The Pico W, you can add 2.4 gigahertz 802.11n, which is nice. USB A is power programming. Dimensions about 1.5 inches by a little under an inch. No video output. People have figured out how to do it via the GPIO pins again, which is just, people are crazy.
I was the real off it.
You'd be surprised.
You ever see it? Remember a Commodore 64? It's kind of limited, but it works for what it's designed to do. So keep in mind, the Raspberry Pi Pico is available readily from AliExpress, Amazon, a bunch of other places. Because the chips for that are available, and if you go to AliExpress, you can find people using the Raspberry Pi Pico chips and all sorts of different alternative stuff for like $2-3. So it's pretty good. Yeah, they're cheap. $6 for a Pico, $8 to $10 for a Pico W is not unusual. Pretty much the Raspberry Pi equivalent of Arduino, which if you dealt with Arduinos and ESP8266s, they're just small wireless devices. They're designed a different way. They're not designed to run an OS. They're designed more or less to run read, evaluate, print type loop like MicroPython and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you could do things like, it reads the state of the switch, so like somebody opens the mailbox or a door opens, you can send it just sends the notice.
Yeah.
That's basically it.
Yeah. It's a microcontroller, not really a microprocessor kind of thing. But the thing about it is they also use a lot less power, so you can theoretically power one off, a couple AA's for quite a while. But there's other systems available. You can buy, like AliExpress is selling chips with like 5 or 10 Picos on them. And I don't know why, but it sounded cool. I wanted one. So some of the cons: your no display. Your pins can do VGA, which is cool. Doesn't run Linux. You can run a limited OS like MicroPython, CircuitPython, etc. There's also Mongoose, which I believe is available, which tries to be more like a regular OS. Not expandable. Memory's in the kilobyte range, storage in the megabyte range. It's a different kind of beast. But there are some RTOS options as well, real-time operating systems. If your project can run with a Pico, that's kind of cool in its own right. If you're looking for a smaller thing, like we're talking like a simple sensor kind of thing, just keep in mind, when you're running Linux, there's always a chance Linux is going to crash. So Python running on a Arduino or a Raspberry Pi Pico is not going to crash very often. They tend to have an uptime that lasts more in the long lines of months to years. But everyone should know a little MicroPython. And I could say something bad about MicroPython, and I will. This is the bad thing about MicroPython. There are parts of Python that they have not implemented, like the config ini stuff, which they did not implement until recently. I believe it's in there now. What it would do is it would not tell you, I haven't implemented this. Instead, it would just be a null call. So you'd say, yeah, you'd write a value, and everything's fine till you try to read the value. And when you read the value, it goes nothing. Doesn't tell you, doesn't give you bupkis. And that annoyed me to no end. So what?
Still better than Ruby.
Everything's better than Ruby. Swift kick to the nuts is better than Ruby. There's one option I didn't put on here, which we're going to talk about a little bit. That's embedded PCs. You can buy cheap PCs that can do all sorts of wonderful PC things because they're PCs. There's microcontroller PCs you can get for like $50 to $100. You go out to eBay, you type in embedded, small form factor, that kind of stuff. You can find all sorts of small ones out there. And they're regular desktop PCs. Keep in mind, you're talking a lot more in terms of power requirements, moving fans, all kinds of stuff, but there's also more power to them. You can get a cheap small form factor PC for probably $50 on eBay that has decent specs. Probably better than a Raspberry Pi. The reason why people are playing with the Pi is because it's cool, it's battery, it can be run off batteries or less power, and it's just something different. It's one of the main reasons for it. And there's some cool software for it. But those are pretty much the basics. The resources, got all those listed at the end. Let's see if anything, oops. Yeah. So there's 6 options to consider until the Pis are freely flowing next year. Each of them has their own benefits and drawbacks. Recommend trying out 1 or 2. The 4G LTE modem, if you're looking for something just different, it is kind of cool. I guess I've enjoyed that one quite a bit. And the Mango's been pretty good. But the Android TV Linux box has worked out pretty well for just running things like games and stuff like that. Because it makes a really nice one. Because you just hook it up and you just load some games on it and just let your kids go to town. So, yeah. 6 options we talked about.
Okay,
Thank you for listening. Questions?
I'll ask, I'll give you one more.
All right, one more.
Okay. Now, my caveat on this is that I have not successfully used
I'm starting strong.
this hardware.
It's never worked for anyone in the world. You the first.
No, I'm not gonna say that because I know people are using it. Okay.
Wise Dell thin clients.
Yes, they're awesome. They are. They are.
Usually have maybe 2, maybe 4 RAM. Usually they are actually modules, so you can replace them. They usually also have a small SSD in there, probably either 8 or 16 gig is what I usually have seen. I have 2 of them that I'm playing with right now. I can, and my product, the problem that I'm hitting right now is that I cannot get it to boot to the USB sticks that I'm using. So I know that I'm getting, I've gotten into the BIOS and, but I haven't figured out.
Is your stick more than 256 megabytes?
Yes,
It could be a BIOS limitation.
could be.
Yeah.
All right, so anyway,
2 gig stick.
but I know that a lot of people, one of the lists that I'm on is for people who do Home Assistant. And they've had great success with Home Assistant using that instead of a Pi.
And
Usually has,
what is Home Assistant for those people?
Home Assistant is Internet of Things controller for your home.
It's Alexa without going to the evil mothership.
Right.
Is how some people call it.
So
assistant.
it's an
Yeah,
assistant.
For the home.
It'll turn on. It's in the name. Anyway,
I gotta walk right now and then.
so people are doing this successfully, not just me. So a little vacations coming up. I might have better results out on the Discord after work.
Cool.
After vacation.
Yeah, they're some of the small form factor PCs got some are pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's there's actually it's amazing some of the projects that work. Somebody took a bunch of Raspberry Pi Picos and recreated a transmuter, which is one of the ones I used to love computing wise. It's used this program language called Occam and did all sorts of weird stuff. But yeah, but the small PCs can vary quite a bit. If you find the right ones, I can't remember how much are those usually?
I've been finding them 30 to 50 with the power brick.
Yes.
So
Power brick's important.
yeah, the power brick is important. So you're getting, you're not having to pay the power supply tax that you have to pay for a Raspberry Pi.
Yeah.
And usually they've got video,
Yeah.
they've got multiple USB, and I think some of them will, at the upper end of that, are probably have wireless on.
Yeah.
There are a lot of them available so far, and you might want to give them a chance.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, definitely it's one to consider especially if you need like many of one, you can buy like 5 or 10 or 15 of some of those. If you need a situation where you're doing like a classroom build out or something like that. I mean, you're not gonna want to run a Proxmox on a whole bunch of those.
No.
But in terms of like single purpose type stuff, it's got some potential. And I recommend, looking at those options as well, but you've got a power supply is gonna be draining a lot more juice and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But some of those are cool.
Does it have a VT102?
I was thinking about,
Bad joke.
I was thinking about Sunrays again. It's like whenever we start mentioning clients, like, God, we had it all figured out, and then never mind. But that's all I got for this month. Next month when's the meeting? January
3rd. Tuesday the 3rd.
God, it's 2023. That's gonna be hard to believe. And we have many slots open still.
We have all the slots open,
Wow.
because I haven't put up with all the car yet, but I only do.
Chad has T-Mux Advanced, T-Mux Super Advanced.
I gotta get those slides.
So I hope everybody has a good Christmas. I think that's it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Happy New Year.
Join us
Yeah.
next time.
Yes.